What is up, everybody? I'm George Mossey. Welcome to the George Mossey Show. This is my co-host, Cherona. Say hi to her. And my special guest, Michelle G. We are back. This is part two. Obviously, we ran out of time because all I do is talk. And I have so many questions for Michelle G. I feel like if we were out hanging out, she wouldn't have a good time at all because I would just be talking and talking and talking her ear off because her knowledge of dating is so invaluable to me. Like, so many people have been in bad relationships and they've been making bad decisions, and she has all the knowledge you need to have a healthy, growing, progressing relationship. And I feel like this information needs to get out. And if you guys need to be matched, this is who you need to talk to. So I have a question. One of my really good friends, she's in the public eye and she's been looking to date and she has had a really hard time. So what is your advice for someone in the public eye who's been on reality TV or a TV show who wants to date, but they want someone to find them attractive and love them for who they are, not because they have a bunch of followers, not because they've been on TV? What tactics do you have where you can get someone to get to know you instead of the character that they've seen on their televisions or when they hit Google and they see all these weird news stories? What do you do to get people to put more interest in you as in that person?
I mean, anyone who is in the public eye, whether they're a celebrity, whether they're someone who owns a company, or just an influencer, like my heart goes out to them because it's not easy to date. Like literally, your life is out for the entire public to make judgment on and to really form an opinion about you. I believe that this is where red flags, yellow flags, and green flags come in. You know, when you're dating in the public eye and you're wanting to make sure that the person that you're meeting with, don't rush things. That would be one of my first pieces of advice, is not to rush things. Take things slow. There is a natural ebb and flow of a relationship, and sometimes I think that with all the external pressures we might not notice it, but we're starting to accelerate things, when in reality it's kind of just taking it one step at a time. Looking out for those red flags. Like what, and we have to identify, like, okay, there's general red flags, like if someone's inconsistent, right? If someone only seems to show up one way when there's a camera or some sort of media device around, but then behind closed door they're different. Like, you got to pay attention to those things. Those are generalities, but I think we have to be clear. And for your friend, as being in the public eye, like, what are also some things for her that are non-negotiables, right? That would be like, okay, if this is a non-negotiable for me, and then this could be how I would be able to acknowledge it through this red flag. I'll give you an example. Maybe someone who's a big spender, right? Maybe they do very well financially, but they're a big spender. For someone, that may be, if the person's like, look, I'm trying to build my wealth, I have a vision, I have goals, right? And if you notice that that person has all this money but doesn't have a direction or a vision for it, that could be a yellow flag, because you might want to start asking more questions around that. Like, okay, what is their relationship with money? Like, what are their financial goals? What are they trying to reach? I feel like when we're in the public eye, or I say we because, being the public eye, also doing some of the work that I did with Darcey, like, it brought me some very much unexpected attention, and everyone was, I had my own experience of that, and it was like, wow, these are conversations and topics that I didn't have to have with my husband. Like, I never had to talk to my husband about what happens if people troll you, right? They don't like me and they troll me. What happens if women start sliding into your DM trying to hit on you? Like all these things that you just don't expect, but it's important to be able to talk about them, right? And I think that paying attention to red flags. And then last but not least is, listen, the same way people do research about you, it's okay for you as a dater to do research on people. Like, it doesn't hurt to do a Google search and just find out what's out there, what's in general about this person. If you have questions before making an assumption or letting a news article or letting a media piece convince you or create a story about that person, ask them. You know what I mean? Give that person the opportunity to not necessarily explain themselves, but really give you like what was happening in their world in that moment, because there's always 2, 3, 4, 5 sides to a story. There's never just one.
I love that.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to take it back to Darcey and Stacey. So so we kind of saw during Darcey dating Cicero, like they both kind of had different viewpoints. Like Darcey thought it was going really good, Cicero kind of didn't. So like, what was kind of going on behind the scenes with that? Because I just feel like we got like so many different sides.
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand kind of the matching process, right? In the matching process, we have Darcey, who is the client, and then we have Cicero, who is a match and a candidate. It doesn't always mean that they hire us as a matchmaking service. And like for anyone listening, if you're single and you just want to be a part of a pool of a network of single people, you can join our database. Like it's free for you to join, right? You can join and you could possibly be matched with one of our VIP clients. So kind of I want to explain that because that was part of how it is we recruited Cicero for Darcey, that we found that they were compatible in a lot of different areas. I think, looking back on the experience, I think both of their feedback, there was congruency in their feedback. They both felt that they liked one another. I think what happens is that they're both very busy people, right? Darcey's running her business. She is also filming on TV. She has, and I think with this season, with what transpired in terms of like, she was also there for her sister for the whole wedding thing. Like, there's only so much a person can handle. Cicero is a single dad, right? Who travels back and forth. He's a businessman. He has also, there's a cultural difference, right? That's another aspect of it. And I think that early on in them getting to know one another, there was some of these cultural expectations that really weren't discussed openly and freely. And some of those conversations that did happen didn't make it on camera either, right? That would give in a lot more context and clarity as to like where the disconnect was. I always was very honest with Cicero if I thought that he was doing something inappropriate or he wasn't acting like a gentleman, and vice versa. I was always really honest with Darcey to let her know, like, listen, this is an area where maybe you, and I think they did show this on the show, like, look, I think they did, like, he's enchulado, right? Like he's expecting a little bit more fire, like a little bit more play. And I think that just when those things aren't discussed or those things aren't really brought forth, right? It can cause for assumptions to be made across the board.
Okay, so here's the question. We saw when Darcey decided to let you go on the show, and she kind of said that she didn't feel like you were going in the right direction, and then you had some feedback for her. What was going through your mind? Because do clients typically disagree with the decisions you make or the people you match them with? Or was this an isolated incident? Like, what was going on in your mind, and how did that situation play out for you? Because I don't know if this is something that happens frequently or if this was a first time for you. So I just want to know, where was your mindset at the time?
Yeah, it isn't something that happens frequently. I think one of the things was like when I first started working with Darcey, I really asked her for her to be coachable. And I think she was in the beginning. And I feel that she was coachable through the process. But I feel that there was some things that Cicero brought up to me that I encouraged him to share with her, right? In terms of just social media presence. And we're not talking just about IG, we're talking about something I wasn't able to disclose, was how he felt about her having an OnlyFans account and kind of other ways that she does present and put herself out there. And I think that was something too, that was a disconnect for both of them. Like, again, it's expectations. Like he needed to be really clear in communicating his expectations, and she needed to be very clear as well. And I don't think that they had a lot of time to be able to do that. And maybe in the times that they did, it didn't come across on camera. It didn't come through, right? So I think when I went into that meeting, honestly, I wasn't really knowing what to expect, because I had another match that I wanted to present to her. So that I didn't get the opportunity. It just didn't make it on camera to present to her this other match. And when she had said to me, like, look, I'm not feeling like I'm comfortable with this process, or like, the second date was something that, to me, I wasn't aware that they were going to be doing a second date. And typically as an agency, what we do is we set up the first date. If things go well, we kind of let things have its natural progression. We don't want to be there all the time, because we understand that that's really them dating, is really them figuring out, are we a fit for one another? So the second date was I was caught off guard, and I understood how she was upset. I also understood what had transpired with this image of him and this other woman. And so there was a lot of variables that needed to be discussed, and they weren't discussed. And so what happens is that it leaves a lot of room for assumption and interpretation. So when I went in, I wasn't expecting her to fire me. I was expecting her to give me some other feedback, but it ended up that she didn't feel comfortable with the process. And I was okay with that because at the end of the day, again, her and I have to be a match in order for our relationship to grow and for us to be able to collaborate and for her to be able to feel comfortable and trust me with the process. So I wasn't upset. And some of the things that didn't make it on camera, I used some different examples of just some other things. And just like the past season, I think her sister also had talked about like her being able to use more of her voice and say the things that she wants and say and ask the questions that need to be asked in order to be able to like get the answers that she wanted. And really my feedback came from that place of, look, I don't have the skills or the tools to help you get there. That's beyond my scope. So this is the best resource that I can offer you so you can be successful, you know, as you're going through this process. Yeah, you know, it was, can't believe everything you see on reality TV. It is, you know, it is a show, right? We do want to make sure that we make things shock and awe, but there is no bad blood between her and I. I wish her nothing but the best. We spoke after the show. We've spoken a couple of times actually after the show. So there is no bad blood between us. And I really do hope that in this journey that she's able to find her voice and find love, honestly. Like, just because it didn't work with me doesn't mean that there isn't somewhere else out there for her.
I love that. I love hearing that you guys have spoken since.
Yeah. She's, you know, there's been people who I've had men reach out to me and be like, hey, I saw the show. Do you think that you could hook me up with Darcey? Do you know, and then I look at the guy and I'm like, okay, I don't think this would be the right fit, you know, but I reached out to her and I said, hey, I think there might be someone I could, you know, would you be open? And, you know, depending what's happening in her life, you know, if she's busy with the girls or busy, she might be like, no, I'm not ready. And I get the impression that maybe I think she's doing her for a little while. That's kind of the impression I get right now.
Okay, so we kind of touched on this earlier, but I kind of wanted to ask. So there's so many different kinds of relationships that people are doing now. You know, it's like more well known that people are like in open relationships, polyamorous, so many different things. So how do you go about matching someone that's like, I want to be with multiple partners, or I have a husband, I'm looking at another husband, or I have a wife, I'm looking at another wife. So how do you go about that?
Great question, Cherona. So I worked with a triad, like I've worked with triads and I've worked with polyamorous relationships more in a coaching communication type of environment, not necessarily matching them. I wouldn't say that that's an area of my expertise, but if someone came to me and said, hey, look, this is the lifestyle, this is my preference in relationships, I am always happy to refer them to one of my colleagues who is probably more specialized in that area and more equipped to serve them than me. I don't pretend to know all and be all, or so, you know, I want to make sure at the end of the day that I refer them to someone that is the right fit for them. So, but I would imagine that there's a lot of very deep and personal questions, you know, more deeper than probably I talk with clients about to understand, you know, the dynamics of it and how to best make it work.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I had a lot of questions about, because so many different feelings and emotions involved in these relationships with multiple people. So it's always going to be difficult to navigate through that to make sure everybody is okay, everybody is happy. All right, so we've run out of time. I've had such a good time. I would love to make this a recurring thing. Like, I would love to have like a monthly relationship talk with you. So if that's a possibility, like, let's talk about that. Thank you so much for coming back on the George Mossey Show. We love having you here. Thank you so much to Cherona for joining me for this interview. I'm going to put Michelle's links and everything here at the bottom. So anybody who's looking to find love or get advice, she is the person that you need to talk to. She has the knowledge that is needed for you to have a healthy, progressing relationship. And I think that's what all of our goals are, right? That's what we're all working towards. So thank you guys so much. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at George Mossey, georgemossey.com, and anywhere you get your podcast. We'll talk to all of you guys really soon.